Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Casen.
This is Kellan. Nice hat, man.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Champs.
we're both wearing hats for our
Mhm.
respective favorite professional football teams. That is
I
genuinely
mean,
a
that
nice
is
hat.
true. That is genuinely a factual statement. Yeah.
Look, this hat's really old, but it's got like the skyline of Pittsburgh and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, yeah. That's really cool.
And I don't shy away from what I said on the show a few weeks ago that I am still apathetic about the Steelers, but the NFL season's over now. It's come to an end. We're back after a week off, and Kason and I are here to talk about the Super Bowl. I'll allow Kason and I to probably be the last ones to give you our thoughts on the Super Bowl at this point. But we're going to talk about it. Some time has passed, so a little bit of the reactions have kind of subsided as well. So we're going to give you ours and kind of how the dust has settled. We're going to talk about the NBA trade deadline, which had some monstrous things happen in our absence last week, Kason. And then
Mhm.
we're going to close it out with some Marvel discussion as we are recording this. This will be. I guess I'll say Happy Valentine's Day as well. That's the day this is going out. We're recording this on a Thursday as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love you, Kason, and I love this show. And how you doing?
Good. It'll be Friday when this drops, so another week down. You know how that goes.
Chugging through February, and we made it through January. We're in 2025. Hard to believe we're a month and a half in already, but we're
Whoa.
going to talk about the Super Bowl, and that's going to be the bulk of today's show. As you want to just dive straight in, Kason? I mean, I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to you about like our real takeaways because we strategically don't talk to each other about certain things. But
Yeah.
Super Bowl 59 is
Uh,
in the books. The Philadelphia Eagles won 40-22. Let's dive in. Let's take off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like you mentioned earlier, I everybody's already talked about it, so we don't need to go into certain things too in depth. But yeah, I mean, it was a domination by the Eagles. It mostly, I from what I saw was I leaning into the whole bit about the Chiefs thing for me. I have watched, I think, most of the Chiefs games this year. Um, and I will say this was all of the problems that you kind of saw a little bit bubbling on the surface for the Chiefs. This was them being fully on display and being at their worst in this game. Like we saw a lot of offensive line issues kind of here and there depending on the game throughout the season. And then they just completely fell apart and it was pretty bad.
I you obviously you jokingly adopted the Chiefs as a joking fan, never really being serious on the show over the course of this year. And when you said I can't wait to like taking the teeth in the course of this show, I'm like I'm not really here to do that today. I am here to say that I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of awesome watching the Eagles just pummel the Chiefs. I can't even lie, it was kind of awesome because I along with everybody else, I got to give props to someone. Got to give props to my mom, who bold faced looked me in the eye on Sunday among friends and others and said, Eagles by at least 10. And she was deadlocked on. She was like, they didn't have Saquon Barkley 2 years ago. They do. The Eagles are good. They're going to win the game. She's the only person in my circle that picked the game. So shout out my mom. But I picked the Chiefs, obviously. We had been singing their praises over the course of this playoffs over the last month on the show. And my goodness, for the Eagles to just like I would go further, Case, and all of the issues the Chiefs had that you have discussed, you specifically have discussed on the show before, the Eagles just took a sledgehammer and exposed all of them in one game. Like everything went wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, it was literally like
Mhm.
I mean, it looked like men against boys. The defensive front of the Eagles just blasted right through the offensive line. Mahomes was running for his life. I mean, it was wild. And I want to give my initial reaction because I'm going to talk about the main turning point I felt. But I mean, would you disagree? Agree? Any of that? I mean, did you feel the same? I
No,
should say
I
while
no,
you were watching the
absolutely.
game.
I mean, the not on the whole of they didn't have Saquon. The defense is also much better than it was 2 years ago. I
Yes,
mean, I believe Jalen Carter was drafted last year,
I
and
believe
so they didn't
so.
have him the last time either. And so you have Cooper DeJean either. I mean, Cooper DeJean is one of the best cornerbacks in the league.
Cooper DeJean,
Um,
man.
and so there's a lot of integral pieces of that defense that weren't there as well as Saquon, along with Jalen Hurts just being better.
Yeah.
Um, and so I agree. I mean, it definitely felt like the outs like on the NFC side, it definitely felt like the Eagles were like the team of destiny throughout the season with the Saquon um offensive explosion all year long and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Of which the irony of that being the fact that Saquon didn't really do much all game. I mean, it wasn't
Right.
really Saquon winning the game for them. It was
Right. I
it
mean,
was it was mostly the defense just completely shutting them down.
if anything, Spags and them drew up a game plan to take him out of the game. It's just
Yeah, they
literally
did.
everything
They
else
did.
went wrong. Everything
Yeah.
else went wrong around them. Um,
I mean,
this,
outside of the picks, I mean, to be perfectly honest, if the Chiefs play the game they played on defense, they probably win the game if the
mm,
offense plays like they did against Buffalo. Like that's the difference. Is like there was a pick six, so take that away, and then there was the other interception that led to their touchdown. So like if you keep them under 30, under 28 or whatever on the actual offensive side, and then but if your offense actually produces what it's supposed to be doing, the Chiefs could have easily won that game. It's just the offense couldn't do anything against that
no, and
defense.
that defense. I mean, honestly, I mean, Jalen Hurts played incredible, and usually the quarterback of the winning team wins the Super Bowl MVP. But give the MVP to all 11 guys on defense. Like, oh
Yeah,
my god!
yeah,
Like between, I'll tell you what game, or I'll tell you what moment for me was eye opening. Which, in hindsight, later in the game, I thought to myself, honestly, the Chiefs were cooked right there. And it was before the DeJean play. I want to see if you remember this play. Do you remember, like, on the first or second sequence for the Chiefs, when I want to say it was the first sequence because their first like actual play that was their first down. Their first actual play that misdirection was good. Like I was like, okay, this is going to be a nip and tuck. This is going to be an even up game. That was their only first down in the first half. Literally after that, but there was the moment when Mahomes drops back and you can tell he's going through his reads. It was one of the few times all night he had time, and he's looking, you can see him, and then he goes and winds up to like go deep, and then he quickly stops, pulls it back down, and tosses it to, I think, Travis right in front of him. And someone who I was with pointed out like that was his check down guy. Like you can tell he thought about bombing it to someone out there, but that person wasn't open. In reality, the Chiefs were cooked right then because that was the story of the entire night. And then other times he just didn't have that time the rest of the night. But everyone was
yeah.
covered. I mean, that dude's DBs were lock and key. And go ahead. I didn't know if you were. Did
Yeah,
you
no,
think it's what I'm talking about?
I
Yeah,
absolutely agree with you because I had some let's say financial implications on the Chiefs winning that game. Um and I felt very uneasy about 10 minutes into the first quarter.
idiot.
Pretty quickly.
I'm
Um
sorry.
the it felt like I had concerns when the Eagles went straight down and scored, and I was like, okay. And then when the Chiefs came down, and then there was the bad call immediately for the against the Eagles. Then there was the makeup call that was equally as bad against the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
just as bad.
Um, and it felt like to me it was that makeup call that really messed them up
Mm.
because they were putting some stuff together and then that they had a pretty good they had a pretty good first down taken away, and then they couldn't do anything the rest of the first half.
No.
Uh,
Well, and I'll tell you the turning point of the game. The turning point of the game was the obvious one when one of the best sequences of I've ever seen. Sack by Mahomes, pressured, sacked. First down. Second down, Mahomes, pressured, sacked. All right. Third down, pick six to Cooper Magine, and he goes right across the field, perfect read, grabs it. takes it, and it was one of those things where the second he caught it, I was thinking pick six, touchdown. Like literally, I was like, "There's no one on that side of the field fast enough to get him."
Yeah.
And he's got nothing. He was running that direction already. I'm like, this is a touchdown. If it's not, it'd be crazy. 38 yards to the house, takes it. And then what was amazing was Cooper DeJean, like it felt like the game was over then. Like I think I even jokingly said, thanks for coming out, Chiefs. Like before like it happened to you guys in a text and other
It,
people.
yeah, yeah, and then it felt like it was still early enough that like theoretically there was a chance,
The second
and
quarter.
then it was the second pick that I think was to who
Zach Bond.
Zach Bond. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the second one to
Which
Zach Bond,
he
which
laid
was
out to
an
get that.
absolutely insane
That
catch.
was
That
probably the
like
best
yeah,
catch in the Super Bowl, honestly.
yeah.
I mean,
So
honestly.
that was when it was like, okay,
Maybe in the
well,
playoffs. That was up there.
they got the pick like inside their red zone, and it's just like, okay, like they're gonna go ahead and score, and now it's gonna be really over.
And
Um,
and they and also importantly, they held the Chiefs to nothing in the first half. I mean, that
yeah,
was significant. And they said the stat of how long it had been since that happened, and that it had like not even happened. Patrick Mahomes, like in the NFL or something, when he started a game,
yeah.
he's never been shut out in the first half. Well, he has now.
Now, I do want to give credit to somebody else too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Vic Fangio. I mean,
Mm,
Vic Fangio's been bouncing around the league for a
absolutely.
while. I mean, he was obviously head coach of the Broncos, got fired there, and he was consulting with the Eagles, and he was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins last year, and then or 2 years or last year, and then this year went back to the Eagles as the DC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is his first Super Bowl. I mean, he's been in the league for a long time, bouncing around back and forth, and it's kind of crazy. This is his first one he's gotten, but
And he and
because he
his
had,
boys shut them
yeah,
down.
absolutely.
I mean, he drew up a game plan that blanked one of the best offenses in the history of football, quite frankly, and made it look just bad. Like it was crazy to watch that. I agree, Casen. Shout out Vic
It
Fangio.
actually he was so Vic Fangio is also a Harbaugh guy. So he was at Stanford with Harbaugh, then he went to the Niners with him. So he
That's
was in the
cool.
Super Bowl with him when they lost to the Ravens. So it's I think his second Super Bowl appearance, but yeah, I mean he's been a pretty good DC, back and forth wherever he's been. So hats off to him for getting the most out of him.
Uh, Let me just kind of pull back to the game here. Got to give a shout out to Xavier Worthy, late touchdown grab for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was over. It was in garbage time. The
Yeah.
final score is not indicative to it. I was kind of hoping that the Eagles would hold them to single digits, just so there's just no doubt. But I'm like,
Yeah.
if everyone will remember them getting blasted in this Super Bowl. And it was what's fascinating is I do want to talk about this, and these are the things you can talk about after the game. It's been a while since it has subsided. What were your thoughts on like the Chiefs' legacy, like with this whole thing? Because it was fascinating to kind of hear over the course of this week, like very much people just throw them under the
I
bus, and I was like, this is a
yeah,
little weird to hear,
I think
you know?
what you can't take away is that they're the first team in the Super Bowl era to even make it back to play for the three-peat.
Yeah,
So that in of itself is an accomplishment. Um, and yeah, I mean they played the worst game they've played in 3 years
yeah.
in their third straight Super Bowl. So yeah, I mean, I would say I have a feeling that this is really seeming to indicate the end of the era of the Chiefs dynasty,
Hmm.
um, because there's a lot of issues. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. I mean, we can talk about that later if you want, but like it, I mean,
I wanted to say something. I let's talk about that now because I misspoke 2 weeks ago when I said that the Patriots were in a situation to go back to back twice. Brady only won back to back Super Bowls one time. That was 03-04. I misspoke. Just wanted to check myself there.
mhm,
And then obviously they won in 14, 16, 18. They kind of skipped years there for a while, but
yeah,
they were always in it, right? Um, there's no I don't necessarily see the. I mean, we who knows about the dynasty, but this is when the test really comes, right? It's like, what does the sustained success look like after you've kind of had this run? They made it to three straight Super Bowls, won two of them. Amazing. I would almost go as far as to say, Casen, that I don't think that'll happen again in our lifetime. I really don't.
Hmm.
Large. I heard various podcasts kind of talking about this and folks making wagers on it, but I'm over here like, yeah, I don't. That's a tall order that happening again. You know what I mean? Um, that being said, this regime now has gotten to two Super Bowls, both of which, when they lost, they got blown out, and it looked ugly, like they didn't even belong in the game. You know, so I'm not
And it
going to
was
sit
kind
here
of
and
the
say
same
it's
problem both times.
yeah,
Like it both times they had some offensive line problems. Um,
and they
and
had a really good defensive line that
and,
rushed four,
and
and it worked.
honestly, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing with Mahomes is that if you can just make him not have time to process and find somebody, and also like cover every like if you can rush for and still get penetration and being able to completely blanket the entire field,
Yeah,
then he's cooked. Like he's cooked.
yeah. The film to beat him is now out there and well established. I will also
It's just the issue is that like it's going to be hard to find rosters that can do that. But that's the thing is so now if you're the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers, you have to invest in your lines.
yeah.
I want to see $75 million on your defensive line.
Drop
Like
defensive line money. Yeah, this offseason. Like, oh, the blueprint to
like
beat the
like
Chiefs is right there.
Matt like you keep Max Crosby because Max Crosby is the Mahomes Slayer already. And so you
Absolutely.
keep Max Crosby. If I'm the Raiders, I am doing my best to trade up to get Abdul Carter because like
Ooh,
that dude would annihilate Mahomes.
I agree. That'd be a good one. That'd be really, really good. I wanted to kind of shift gears. I do think as long as Andy Reid, Mahomes are there, they're going to be contenders. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and
That's another
say,
question of like
does this
it
motivate them to
yeah.
get back again because of what's being said about them not like right now? But people are talking this week like they're completely cooked and that Mahomes is completely washed. I'm like, okay, guys, like I think that's a
Yeah.
little bit strong. I think that's a little bit ridiculous.
I will say
Yeah,
here's the thing the thing is that it's felt weird all year. Like I have paid an inordinate amount of attention to the Chiefs and like their game and how they play.
you have.
So I have like I have become very aware of how they operate. And so
This is true.
everybody talks about like how hard it is to sustain the drive to win when you're on that much of a stretch.
And when you've
And
won,
they've been playing into February like for the last 3 years
right.
and into late January for seven pretty much.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it it's tough and it felt like this year was different
Mm.
because I have not I don't know why, but I hadn't seen hardly anybody talking about it. Mahomes was playing like crap all year long.
Yeah, he
Like
didn't play well. Like,
nobody was talking about it in the way that they should have been because everybody I can get more to Travis later, but everybody was on Travis for playing like garbage. I was
Mahomes
watching the
played like
games.
garbage too.
I was watching the games
Yeah.
and like a lot of that was on Mahomes.
And
Like
Trav and
he was missing him, he was throwing stuff low,
yeah.
throwing stuff like in the Super Bowl for example, everybody was on Travis for having no catches in the first half. I saw very early on in the first quarter, there were two passes to Travis. One was like 3 feet to the left of his arms that he couldn't catch. Then the other one was at his feet that he
Yeah.
would have like had to concuss himself on the turf to catch. So it and I was like, why is everybody blaming Travis for this when Patrick clearly can't see and is seeing ghosts out there
Yeah, he
and is just
can't.
throwing stuff like I don't I'm not trying to be like number one Travis Kelsey defender here, but it's just
No.
it bothers me when receivers get all of the blame for not catching 100% of the stuff that's thrown the direction. Like
One, he's
there
been
are
super
bad
out.
passes.
He's been super outspoken though too, right? So the quicker they're going to be quicker to be like, "Well, Travis, you've been playing like terrible." But I think you're onto something there. I mean, to your point, they have been playing like in long, long time the last several years, and it does take a toll, I would imagine, especially when you consider that much shorter of an offseason.
Hmm.
The fact that a team made it to four straight Super Bowls is bananas to me that ever happened. And even in Fort Falls of Buffalo, in that 30 for 30, they talk about how like by that third and fourth season, it was like insane that it took so much for them to even make it there that by the time that they made it there, they just had nothing left. And it was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I mean, I would imagine you guys just, the drive to get to four was because you could never win it, and it's crazy when I think, not to get too sidetracked here. It's crazy when I think about that because that Bills team was basically a dynasty that just never got the championship. You know what I mean? They were. I mean, essentially they had like all these Hall of Famers. They never got the title. So it's hard to say, dynastic runs,
Yeah.
four-time AFC champions. I mean, that's crazy. Pulling it back to the Chiefs, I'm very curious to see ultimately where things go now because the blueprint is out on how to beat them.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and say this. I'm kind of happy the Bills didn't beat the Chiefs because I'm telling you right now, the Eagles would have done that to the Bills too. I really
Hmm.
believe that. I think they would have stomped on the Bills too, and it would have been even sadder because all of the Bills fans would have been like, "Hey, we're finally back to the Super Bowl," and they just get annihilated. It's like, oh, just like old times. But
Yeah. Yeah. I I agree. And look, and here's the thing, looking towards the future,
yeah, like where do
I
they
I
go from here? I don't know.
I to me, I honestly like it. Obviously, this is, kind of dumb to say this, but I think the Chiefs are going to have a hard time making the playoffs.
Mm,
I mean, here's my thought.
I don't think so.
So I, it seems incredibly
Their
likely
division is terrible.
that
Their division is trash. They're not going to
right
struggle to make the
now, as of
playoffs.
right now, maybe, but I think, yeah, they're gonna make the playoffs, but it's just like I don't think they're gonna get the one seed. They're probably gonna lose to the Ravens or Bills. Um, but my larger point was that they'll have a disappointing season compared to the whole of Mahomes' career so far. Um, because like they're gonna have to completely rework this line. They don't have much money to do that, and
And the line isn't something you
I
can just fix in an offseason. Like,
I will say I will be very surprised if Travis comes back. It seems like it's heading that direction because
it seems like he's heading out.
what it because he talked about it yesterday on
Yeah.
their podcast, and the way he was talking about it was he want to come back, but he doesn't feel like he wants, but like he wants to want to come back, but he doesn't want to come back yet, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Because he made a slight phrasing in the statement of if he has the motivation to come back. And it's just like, bro, if you already don't know if you have the motivation, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I don't think it's coming back, especially when you
Yeah.
consider that.
I
Yeah, the
I
three-peat's
think the
gone.
the the only thing in his like I think the only reason he's even tempted to come back is because of the loss.
Yeah,
And he's like, I don't want to go out like that. But it's like, bro, if you come back, you're going out worse. Like
it could be worse. Yeah,
you're
like
you're you're going just by nature, you're gonna have a worse year yourself.
you're
The
gonna have a
team
worse
is going
year.
to be worse.
It's another
Like
year banging your body up.
you went out losing in the Super Bowl. Like you
With
were the second best team in the league. Like I
with
don't know
three
what
exactly right. I mean, with a chance for three in a row, right? With two in the
Yeah.
bag,
Yeah.
three overall, right? Because he was
Yeah.
on that other one too.
Yeah.
So, and how many times did they play in this? Did he play in the Super Bowl? Five. He played
Yeah. This
five,
was
right?
his
Yeah.
fifth. Yeah. Yeah.
So during this kind of little run they've been on, so yeah, I really think that what you're hearing talking there is, yeah, we lost, and as a competitor, it just sucks to go out on a loss like that. Like that's the last time they saw me. I'm like, dude, trust me, like no one's really going to remember that. They're going to remember how it
Yeah.
ended, but like I'm
Yeah.
also going to remember the amount of wins you had prior to this season. Um,
Yeah. And
it'll be
I think
worse if you come back another year and
right.
you don't even make it to the Super Bowl, and it's like now I really remember you trying to get back to that Super Bowl and you just couldn't do it. Now I really think of you that way.
Yeah, and I
I
think
don't
part
know.
of it too is I think he feels like he'd let the team down if he retires because of how much he means to them,
Yeah,
as far as
I
like
get that.
as far as what he brings to the offensive side.
And just the
In
leadership. He's
Yeah,
one of the faces of
exactly.
the franchise. He's an undoubted like Mount Rushmore esque
Hmm.
pillar of this dynasty, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think that that's a really, really, really difficult thing to walk away from. I mean, look how tough it was for his brother,
Yeah.
a year ago.
I mean,
So,
and Jason went out getting absolutely shellacked in Tampa Bay.
right.
Um, so yeah, it sucks, but my prediction is that he retires because he's gonna have to have an awkward conversation with the front office if he doesn't, because the front office has to pay him $17 million. And
Wow.
they're not gonna
Okay.
want to do that. So they're either gonna have to ask him to take less money for his last year. Yeah. So anyway, that along with that, they they have to completely figure out the receiver problem because they don't
Right.
really have receivers.
Yeah.
So
If you're Xavier Worthy, you're like, man, I thought for sure we were winning a Super Bowl in my rookie
yeah,
year,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, the only one who really did anything in it was me for my team. Trust me, you
yeah,
got a long career ahead of you, man. I really
yeah.
think you do, whether it's there or somewhere else or multiple places or whatever. Shifting to the Eagles, I mean, what a win. I mean, honestly, what a statement by Jalen Hurts. To think of where we were in the middle of this season, talking about like when
Hmm.
Sirianni was yelling at the fans, to the way their season ended last year. I mean, I cannot sing their praises enough. You talk about a complete
Did you
ball
see
club.
that Jordan ad that came up for Jalen Hurts right after the
Yes,
Super Bowl?
yes, very good
I thought
ad.
that they had that locked and loaded, ready to go if they won, and that hats off to them.
Yeah, like whenever that stuff happens, I think, oh, there were probably three-peat ads that we'll never see, that
Yeah,
just on the hard drive somewhere. Like
yeah,
that because that's how it goes. You
yeah.
make content for both, and you roll with whatever happens. That is, as someone in the business, that is what happens. But it got to be said that I don't necessarily see like an Eagles kind of thing, maybe dynasty happening here per se. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that it's clear that at least for the foreseeable future, the NFC may run in and out of Philly and or Detroit. Um, and it's a good time. And if you're the Eagles, it's a good time to be on that side because it's you're still the top dog, but it could be the
I
Washington. Yeah,
Yeah, I will say they might have a couple more years, but I know a lot of these guys are going to be coming up for big contracts,
right. That's going to
and
ultimately
so
happen, right?
yeah, I think I haven't seen the salary cap table or the salary table for the Eagles, but I would imagine they might have 1 or 2 years of like potentially contending,
Right.
until they are forced to make decisions on letting guys walk, but. I mean, yeah, that's just what happens. I mean, you get,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years of really gunning for it, and they managed to do it. So hats up to them. I will say there was a funny story that I heard Nick Wright say
Yeah.
about his weekend of the Super Bowl. He was at some place in New Orleans, and some woman came up to him and was like, "Hey, are you Nick Wright?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, well, "Did you say X, Y, and Z about Jalen Hurts? Like, were you saying that he's like bad, terrible, he can't throw like?" And Nick Wright said that he walked through specific statements that he said on the air and said, "Yes, I did say that, but it was after he did this." Or no, I didn't exactly say that he was this bad. And then he was talking and he was sitting there for a second. And as people started to walk around and join her, he took a look at the people. And he goes, "Ma'am, are you Jalen Hurts' mother?"
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
goes, "Yes, I am."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like
I'd be like,
okay."
all right, well, I get it. I listen. Me being from Pittsburgh, if that happened to me among a bunch of Philly fans, that would terrify the life out of me. I'd be like, okay, this is going to get bad real quick. I am surrounded by green here, and anyone who knows me knows that Philly fans are lunatics. So it's like, oh, this is going to be wild. They're not. They are not going. They're greasing the poles. They are not going up the poles. They are taking them down and up Broad Street. I
Yeah.
will say, amazing video I saw. Incredible video. Hopefully you saw it too. Of them like crowd surfing a guy in a wheelchair. That was that was amazing. That was actually incredible. Like, yeah, dude, like I think even that guy posted like, one of the greatest moments of my life or whatever. Like, go birds. Like I was like, that's cool. That's the city of brotherly love right there. But um ultimately, hats off. It was kind of fun to honestly good vibes Super Bowl too because let's be real, outside of KC, everyone wanted to see the Chiefs lose, and for them to just get absolutely demolished like that never even happened to Brady. You know, if one of those Patriots teams had just gotten blown out in the Super Bowl, I mean that never happened. You know what I mean? They lost some, but they didn't get just utterly destroyed. So um, it was kind of ironic though, as I really was thinking about it, and I was like, Tom Brady, I thought he was okay on the broadcast. I thought he did fine, but at the same time, it was like, man, you know, this guy really is speaking from experience of the other guy who destroyed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
That was very funny
Yeah.
to to hear him at least talk about like his perspective of losing Super Bowls, his perspective of beating Patrick in the Super Bowl. Um, and so yeah, I mean it brings up a funny point that some people were saying was that um Mahomes's three losses in the playoffs are like three main losses. It
Mm.
like they're like he's lost to Brady in the AFC Championship game, lost to Brady in the Super Bowl, lost to Super Bowl with Brady on the call.
Yeah.
And so it's like mm,
I want to shout out Jalen Hurts, who all the way around is a good guy. It's kind of nice to kind of see and it was awesome to kind of see that picture of him in the confetti that I sent to you and others.
mhm.
Incredible photo taken by someone. Hats off to you, just all the photography you see. But it really, his speeches were also humble too. But I'm like, it really looked like you can tell it has not hit this man that he just did this. I mean, I'm sure that doesn't. By the time this show comes out, the Eagles parade is on Friday. It's like on Valentine's Day. So, you know, whenever you're listening to this on that Friday, I'm sure by then it probably really hits you when you're back in Philadelphia and you're in your home city and you see all the people come out and everything. I mean, I'm sure that'll be wild as always is when Philly wins anything. But yeah, I would like to shift to kind of the pomp and circumstance around the Super Bowl. You know, any thoughts on the halftime show, things along that nature? Because that's been a point of discussion this week as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked a bit about the halftime show. Did you know? I don't know how in depth we want to go here on this program about certain things with the halftime show, but yeah, I mean, I think that essentially what I think the overarching theme is, and I enjoyed it. I know you enjoyed it. But I do think that there is a bit of a problem of of putting somebody like Kendrick in that spot to
Yeah,
where most of that viewership doesn't even know who he is.
right.
And so it's like it's cool to maybe introduce them, and I'm sure some he got some fans out of that. But I there is something to be said though of like the nature of the Super Bowl probably requires like a bit more wider known or wider appeal like
I would agree.
halftime shows. I It would have been great to see Kendrick and somebody else on
Yeah,
like a completely different side. You know what I mean? Like have Kendrick do a little bit shorter of a thing, and then also somebody that can like bring in different perspective. You know what I mean? Like
my
that would just be my idea.
I agree. You know, and in I've never actually said this on our podcast, Casen, but I am essentially a Kendrick stan. Been a stan in the sense of a massive fan of his.
Mhm.
I am have loved Kendrick Lamar all the way since Good Kid, Mad City, since I was a sophomore in college, and then went back listened to Section 80. From the very beginning, I always said this kid's got something. This dude is like then you can tell he was the next like big voice, which of course turned out to be true, and he's had all this stuff come out. Here's the thing: as excited as I was, we never actually talked about it on this program as excited as I was and happy that he had gotten to the point where he had enough notoriety to get the Super Bowl halftime show, there was always a part of me in the back of my head that says this probably doesn't happen without the Drake beef in the summer,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is true. And then I remember thinking to myself, I really hope that it's not all centered around the Drake beef during the show, which I would argue it kind of was. And he did mostly stuff from his new album GNX. He didn't do a few hits that I really think he would have done. If you're a real if you're a real in-depth fan of Kendrick Lamar's, I would have loved to hear something from Good Kid, Mad City. I would have loved to hear something from To Pimp a Butterfly. Those are his two biggest albums. But a Kendrick drop is always a huge deal. All of his records are good in different ways. in a lot of ways, it felt I didn't love that if that was the one Kendrick Lamar halftime show we were going to get that it was tied to this whole thing, and yet I know it doesn't happen without the Drake beef. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a conflicting nature to me. It's sort of like in the sense of I loved it, but I was going to love it because I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. Totally agree that like someone with a more wide range appeal probably more necessary. But then again, we've also seen The Weeknd and others get the Super Bowl halftime
I
show before.
I know
You
I know a
know,
lot of people were upset that Lil Wayne didn't get it because he's from New
he's from New
Orleans.
Orleans. Well, here's the deal. It'll be in New
Mhm.
Orleans again. Okay.
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
it's not going to be, it's not like the Super Bowl's not going to be in New Orleans ever again. But
I,
yeah,
I
I
think
get
it
that.
would have been cool if you had Lil Wayne on there too, because I think Lil Wayne is old enough that like and has been around enough that I think he's a bit like more people know about him.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, and
Uh,
and so I think that would have been cool if you had Lil
I
Wayne
had a
maybe.
theory. I had a theory
Yeah,
that I wanted to share on this cast. Um, what's interesting about like just how life goes is that there was upon a time when Drake and Kendrick were cool. It's a long time ago, but it
yeah,
happened. I really, really, really thought that there was a chance. Like I thought there's like a 1% chance this happens, but I thought this would blow up the internet up way more. I would have thought it was cool that by the time that they're getting towards the end of the set list and they're doing maybe some Good Kid, Mad City stuff, they're doing like swimming pools or they're doing like backseat freestyle or they're doing like money trees, something. They start the beat for uh, 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 Poetic Justice, which is a song on that album, which features Drake. And then Drake comes out. No, I'm serious. I'm being serious. And then Drake comes out and they squash the beef and do that song. I thought that would have been kind of cool. Like I thought to myself, there's no way that's happening. There is no way that's happening. It's like an angel or devil on your shoulder situation. Like
yeah.
he's
Yeah
gonna have
they
the
ain't
whole
yeah
world blare, not like us, which is like a 6-time Grammy winning song
yeah yeah
a week ago.
they
Like
they
they're not
are
doing
they are
that.
not squashing that beef. No,
No, not
no.
especially not with like him literally suing Kendrick right now. So not really suing him, but suing the
Yeah,
the publisher. So I thought wishful thinking. I was like, that's kind of like in my head that would be kind of cool if that actually did happen and they decided to do that because I think that would have immortalized that Super Bowl halftime show. In a way, it still kind of is, but now I'm just like, wow, that Kendrick really had the whole world like going at Drake, you know. So that those are my overarching thoughts that we've never really talked about music on this cast before. Our
hmm
tastes in it. We have talked about our top albums of all time before. We like doing that. Maybe sometime we will do that on this cast. But those are the thoughts I really just wanted to share on the Super Bowl halftime show. Also, I really loved the PlayStation controller stage because that's totally what that was
yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
Kendrick himself. So
So
yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think that it I think part of it was just kind of weird because it felt like a very odd fit.
yeah,
Because like the whole vibe of Kendrick during the Super Bowl would have fit when it was in LA with like Dr. Dre and Snoop and
yeah.
like it just
But he was
yeah,
in that show. You know,
yeah.
he was in that show. He did one song. He was in that show. But like as a fan, you know, he didn't even do some songs that I thought to myself are an absolute staple.
Yeah,
I
I
was
did think the song selection was a little weird that like
yeah, I was
there
like,
was there
really
were
this
hits
one?
that like you don't like yeah.
He didn't do
It
all
felt
right with Pharrell Williams. He didn't do,
it
you
felt
know,
weird. Yeah, it felt weird that he was choosing to just promote GNX
yeah,
rather than like actually play the songs people would know.
yeah, which is a great album. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but yeah, when you are I don't know. I think the appeal in Kendrick and a lot of his like shows. I've never seen a Kendrick show live. I'd like to someday. Um, but you know, a lot of the appeal of his shows is that he is an incredible lyricist, and when he's doing it on the fly or during his shows, it's very impressive. Doesn't probably work for a Super Bowl audience, right?
Mhm.
Regardless, you need someone to do the show every single year, and I'm happy Kendrick got one. I am happy Kendrick got one. Um, I'm always curious to who wants to do it next. You know what I mean? I know folks have said people talk about like, oh, they should have Taylor Swift do it and all that stuff. I'm like, from the get go, whenever that started happening, I was like, yeah, that's the thing. The NFL needs that to happen way more than Taylor Swift does. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I mean, I know there were short lists of people who could do the show in the future, but Maybe they'll lean back in a pop direction next year or something like that. So
Yeah, moving or just taking a look at the future. So the
yeah, go
next
ahead.
year's the Super Bowl next year, Super Bowl LX 60, is going to be back in the Bay at Levi's. Did you see
Yeah.
the logo yet for the new logo?
No, what's it look like? Just describe it.
It
What colors is
is
it?
I all of them. I just sent it to you.
Oh,
Uh,
did you? Oh, you texted it to me. Oh, cool. That's actually amazing looking. I'll even hold that up.
for
YouTube, like there it is.
the radio or for the audio listeners,
Yeah,
it's blue, uh, pink, yellow. It's got all these colors with this, and it's essentially a skyline of the
yeah.
Golden Gate Bridge.
It's like a skyline painting is what it looks like. Is
Yeah,
essentially with a LX in there. Super Bowl 60, 60. Um, well, yeah, which means I've been alive for half the Super Bowls. Haha.
it's go. Okay, wow. Okay,
What?
I was just looking at this, and it's already going back to LA for 61. I didn't even
Yeah.
think about. Yeah,
Well,
that's
in
but
my thoughts are, I mean, I would assume it's, yeah, I mean, these new state of the art stadiums are definitely built with the Super Bowl in mind.
yeah.
Once again, Casen, gonna be pretty cool. Hopefully, one day when it's in Cleveland, that's gonna be dope.
We'll see. We'll
You know what I
see.
mean?
Um,
Heralding another story we've talked about on
I
this cast
do
before.
believe that there was something that just came out today about the league offering or try or potentially offering Cleveland another draft to make up for the limited draft from 21 because of the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, sure.
yeah,
But either way, it looks like they're just going to pass the draft around now, which is cool.
yeah.
I just, it was in Radio Music City Music Hall for years and years, and now it's like, hey, let's just move it around the league, which is, let's be real, the draft is a feel good NFL event. It is. So it really is. Like it ultimately
Mhm.
is. It's like the one NFL thing that happens all year where there's no like detrimental, devastating thing that could happen and befall you. I mean, yeah, your team could draft someone you don't like, but generally speaking, it's like a picnic feel. It's like, waiting for our guy to get drafted.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. I will say in thinking about, and in 2026, it's in Pittsburgh. Throwing it out there. Still wondering where on earth it's going to be in Pittsburgh, but it's my hometown. But we'll figure it out, I guess.
Yeah.
Somewhere on the North
I
Shore, probably, or at the point.
I just want to at least point this out because this is very bizarre to me, and I'm
Sure.
very confused as to how they choose the Super Bowl locations. Just because like going through
Hmm.
2020, that this was the first Chiefs 49ers game. The Chiefs won their first one of this
That was in
era.
Miami.
It was in Miami. Then the
Yep.
next year it was in Florida, just in Tampa Bay. Then
Yep.
the next year it that was the Rams Bengals in SoFi in
In
LA.
LA. Yep.
And then it was Phoenix, Vegas, and then New Orleans, and then it's going to go San Francisco, LA. So it's like LA, Phoenix, Vegas. It seems like they're heavily trending in the on the West
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah, they
and
are.
with a little bit Eastern sprinkled in. I just thought it was weird at how they're focusing. It'll be in Atlanta, I think, for 62, but it's weird that they're like focusing heavy on the West and then
Right.
sprinkling in a little bit of the East.
The well, and I would say the Super Bowl has just gets bigger and bigger every year, right? In terms of
Yeah.
infrastructure needed to host. It's sort of like how I heard someone say relatively recently, like, well, the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 40 in 20 years ago. Wow, yeah, 40 in Detroit was a really great location to host a Super Bowl. And I
Mhm.
was like, yes, but the NFL would never go back to Detroit like now. You know what I mean? Like the infrastructure needed to pull the event off. I really think they try not to shop that game around too much. Like, for example, I don't think we'll get a MetLife Super Bowl ever again.
Oh
That was
no,
kind
that was
no,
awful.
like
Yeah, that was
no way.
awful.
Like the game itself was awful, but they got the most perfect weather ever. But I remember that being like a huge point of contention. But like, there's not a soul that wants to do that in New York again. You know what I mean? With as congested as that is,
Yeah.
so it really does make me think like, Yeah, infrastructure wise, everyone says New Orleans is a good time, the Super Bowl. All those other places just make sense. Like I said, that's why all of these Midwest teams, like the Bears, like the Browns, want to build a dome stadium or at least a closable roof, right? I could definitely see it back in Lucas Oil just because that's a great stadium and I
Hmm.
could and has the infrastructure. I mean, they host enough college football stuff and the combine and stuff. So, um, yeah, but yeah, you can definitely see now that they have these giant state of the art stadiums. It's like, yeah, let's like keep it that way. Let's
Yeah,
like they're a warm weather location. Let's like continue to have the Super Bowl those places. So, we will see. I wanted to say that the Athletic did like a rankings of the top Super Bowl like halftime shows of all time, and like overwhelmingly people said it was Prince. I'm like, yeah, it was. Prince is the best
yeah,
halftime
yeah,
show of all
yeah.
time. I
I
don't
mean,
know if anyone's ever topping that.
nobody can beat Purple Rain in the Rain. Nobody can beat that.
In the pouring down rain, when Prince literally was told by the engineer, yeah, so we're a little worried about the rain, man, and just telling him this could happen, this can happen. It's like, you got any concerns? And Prince, being the cool guy he is, literally said over the phone, said, you know, can you make it rain harder? Like, I was like, this dude is like, I heard that like a part of NFL films, and I'm like, man, Prince was the man. So anyway, that's our thoughts on the Super Bowl. Anything left, Casen, that we haven't touched? Commercials were kind of duds this year.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even really watch many of them.
Yeah, the I would say
Yeah, I
the Bud Light one with Shane Gillis and Post Malone was good. It's like, oh, you're
yeah,
your
yeah.
your lawnmower grills meat. No, my smoker cuts grass. That was probably the best line of any commercial. But yep, is it time to move on to the other thing?
Yeah, I think we can move on.
This is more your area of expertise. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone. We were kind of just touching on things our last show to just kind of check in. We hadn't talked about hockey. We hadn't talked about basketball. But then, wow, the NBA gave us probably the biggest trade deadline in our lifetime. If I'm if I'm being completely honest, Jason, in terms
Yeah,
of how it could change the league,
yeah,
didn't have that on my bingo card for 2025, at least the NBA trade deadline. Let's get into
yeah.
it. I guess we could start
Okay.
right off with the massive deal.
Yeah, we'll start off. So this is fairly old news by this point,
It's old
but
news. It is.
yeah, the Dallas Mavericks decided to just blow up their franchise completely unprompted. And they traded Luka Doncic for basically a bag of peanuts and Anthony Davis, who was already injured and will be out for
Yeah,
probably the rest of the season.
that's wild.
Um, so
Uh, Let me just say
yeah,
that, like, our friend of the show Matt texted me. I saw that it happened over the week. Happened over last weekend. It happened over the weekend
yeah,
prior to the Super Bowl. The in between, we were waiting on the Super Bowl, and I saw that, and it was one of those things from Shams where I'm like, surely that's not real. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, there's no way that's
yeah.
real. And even Shams was like,
There's so many
hey,
like fake parody accounts. I don't know if you've ever seen NBA Centel. Uh,
yeah, I've seen that one.
there's the meme out there that's like, I can't believe it's not butter, but it's I can't believe it's not Centel that goes around.
Well, and it's funny because I thought about Shams like big time, like taking over Shams, however you pronounce it. I don't want to be wrong here.
Yeah.
He you know, him taking over for Woj, obviously,
Mhm.
it's one of those things like welcome to. It's what he truly had one of those welcome to your new job moments. Yeah, here's your new job. Here's the craziest NBA trade deadline ever. Go,
Yeah, yeah,
basically, have fun. But even he like prefacing that news by saying like, I'm not joking, like this is for real, like reemphasizing, yeah, I can't believe it either, but this is legit. I would not be tweeting it otherwise.
yeah,
Here it is, Luke. I'm like, Luke, what? Like, wow.
yeah. So to me, the story is not so much of the trade. It's about like what went into it and like how it.
And what the
So
fallout has been. That those are the two stories, the two
yeah.
angles.
It's the fallout in from the Mavericks
Yeah.
because the as soon as the trade happened, everybody was asking why.
Yeah.
Like, why? And so
Like,
it
surely this is a mistake.
for reference, just so everybody's aware, Mark Cuban does not own the Mavericks anymore.
No.
He sold. I think he still owns part of it, but he sold the majority of the stake to to Sheldon Adelson's widow. Sheldon Adelson was uh a big guy in Vegas building casinos and a real estate guy in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And so his widow, Miriam Adelson,
And
um,
Cuban does not have a controlling stake anymore.
correct, correct.
He
And
doesn't
so,
make team
yeah,
decisions anymore.
yeah. And so, uh, the Miriam Adelson is now the controlling owner, and it from everything I've understood so far has been on the express lane to destroying the franchise since she acquired it.
Mm.
And it because there's a I'll get to what was it, Nico Harrison, I think is his name. I'll get what he said at this press conference later, but from what I have seen, Mark Cuban did not know about this until the last second before it was finalized, and he immediately talked to Nico, the GM, to try and get him to talk him out of it, but it was too late. It was already done before he could talk to him. Um, because he was on record of saying that I would die before I trade Luca.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was just as dramatic, but it was like also incredible. If it was between trading Luca and like divorcing my wife, like if I had to trade Luca or divorce my wife, I would be speaking to my lawyer the day of. Like I was like, wow.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
which is just an all-time great quote, confidence of a guy. And he didn't say that about this situation, by the way. He said that like a long time
Years ago,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, years ago, Yeah.
And so that's yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing because I Luca, by the way, is still one of the league's best players coming off of a finals appearance. So it's like,
Well,
hello.
and let's just go ahead and talk about this too. That there Nico Harrison is citing conditioning issues with him. Uh whatever you want to say, it really seems like this was done out of personal feelings. Like, and that's the thing. Like, all of the stuff that's been said, there's evidence that Nico Harrison didn't like Luka, didn't want him in the franchise or whatever. For whatever reason, it was made. I mean, you talk about like the people who are like, I'm not a Mavericks fan anymore. Like, I don't blame you. Like, this is one of those things where
I
I would renounce my
Yeah,
fandom over
yeah.
this. I'd be like, I'm
I
sorry.
it,
Like, no way.
the other thing though too that is absolutely insane to me is yeah, Mark Cuban, who was like the face of the franchise for as like he was about as, public facing of an NBA owner we ever had.
Yeah.
That like he and the Mavs went hand in hand. For him to like still he's still semi like around a little bit,
Yeah.
just like aware of what's going on. For him to have no idea this was happening, I Nico did not tell Jason Kidd, the head coach, until it was done. Of which Jason Kidd was probably like, "I'm sorry, you're doing what now?"
I don't know about you. The press conference with Jason Kidd sitting there was one of the funniest things I've seen in my entire life. That was
Yeah.
so funny.
I
I
I
just
half expected him to quit by now. Like
yeah,
I would quit and leave.
I like literally if you have not seen it, folks, I recommend going to look it up. Nico Harrison is just sitting there, bold faced, saying all the things he can as to why, he's giving GM speak about why they made the move. And Jason Kidd is just simmering next to him. Like he just looks incredibly mad. Like you said, like he looks like if he says the wrong thing, he's gonna quit on the spot the whole time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, Jason Kidd is truly only here for the paycheck right now.
And
He would
and then
not be
and
sitting here
then
otherwise.
and then Nico just like says, "All right, thanks guys," gets up and leaves, and then Jason has to sit there and answer the rest of the questions.
Yeah,
Like
like what are you gonna?
this guy is
I'd be like,
I
you
will
did.
get to my point in a second, but if there was any other owner that was owning this team, Nico would have been fired a week ago.
Oh, he would have been. Well, I mean, that's the thing. If Cuban was still in charge, he probably would have been fired for even suggesting this. Like, I would have been
Yeah,
like, dude,
yeah,
like, no, what's your issue? What's your beef with this guy? But pulling it back, I do want to just say, at a time when like truly most billionaire owners are just terrible to their fans overall. Make every decision for money. Mark Cuban was an incredible owner of the Mavericks.
yeah.
Genuinely did it for the right reasons. The architect of maybe the greatest finals run ever, Dirks. to go
Mhm.
all the way through, and people forget who they beat along the way. They beat the Blazers, and then they beat Kobe and Powell coming off a championship. Then they beat that loaded Nuggets team, excuse me, Thunder team. It's got Durant and Harden and Westbrook, and then they beat LeBron. LeBron's hit he, the first one.
Yeah,
Like people,
that is a path.
like literally all like I literally saw a TikTok here recently that said in that run, all of the Hall of Famers of that era got clapped by them. Literally all of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, they really did. Like the incredible. So yeah, and that happened in large part because of Dirk and Mark Cuban. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'll never forget that too. He was celebrating with the team when they were winning a championship, and they came up to try to ask him questions, and he said, "Don't talk to me, talk to this guy," and he pushed Dirk towards the camera. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't talk to me. I don't like. He's every bit the owner you wanted it to be, right? I just wanted to give
Yeah.
some love to fellow Pittsburgher Mark Cuban. But anyway, I would like you to get to your point about Nico Harrison.
Yeah. Well, so my larger point was more the fact that I don't know if I sent it to you. I sent it to somebody. I don't remember who I sent it to, but
Sure,
there was some conversation in the days following this trade over why, and the fact that he has a job indicates to me that the directive to trade Luca came from Miriam Adelson.
had to have.
And the theory as to why is this:
Mm-hmm.
the
I know
the
where this is
ownership
going.
is making a play for a new arena, and for their new arena, they want like a gaming casino to be in the arena. And if anybody knows anything about Texas, they have some pretty difficult laws about that.
Yeah,
And so these people from Las Vegas buy this team in Dallas, and they're trying to make some Las Vegas type casino arena in Dallas. And the theory it goes is that they are blowing up the franchise as basically a threat to the governor and the legislature of Texas to force them to pass laws to allow them to make the building they want, or they will just move the team to Las Vegas where
yeah,
they already are located, because
of
the
course.
writing is on the wall that they clearly want to go, that they want a basketball team in Las Vegas instead of this one in Dallas. So I think the thought is they're either doing this to move the Mavs to Vegas, or they will like take over an expansion franchise in Vegas and then sell the Mavs.
If
Like
I'm a
kind
Mavs
of like
fan,
yeah.
I'd almost just rather them move the current franchise out and us get a new one in Dallas. Because few things about this that are just insane to me. They are not going to. The NBA is not going to allow that to happen to Dallas. Too big of
Yeah.
a market. So one way or another, that happens. But if they got an expansion franchise, I'm going to be sitting there. If I'm a Mavs fan, thinking, "Well, thanks for trading Luca. If you were just going to do that anyway, like appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just no matter what. Like the NBA, Silver and them cannot be happy with this. You know. But then again,
I
on the other side, though, Luca's now in LA, of course, with
so
LeBron.
so so
So it's
the
like
this is the, looking back on this though, how did Adam Silver let this happen?
he should have vetoed this trade.
David Stern rejected the Chris Paul trade, which
Yeah,
objectively was like not even a problem.
yeah.
Like he rejected that just because he didn't want Chris Paul playing with Kobe. Like that
Silver
was
should
the
have
reason.
vetoed it. He should have vetoed it.
So now you let Luca play with LeBron? Like what are we doing?
Ridiculous. They want one more. They want one more run out of LeBron in the finals, and they want it in LA. And this is the way to do it. I will say the other side of that coin, it has been kind of cool to see the Lakers welcome him. They've done a great job of doing that. They're the Lakers. I mean, they're used to stuff like this. LeBron's been the
did,
sound bites of him have been
did
cool.
Did you see
What?
that press conference with Palinka and Luca, where Palinka was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I don't really know how he's here, but like he's my new son." Like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah. I was like,
really.
yeah. I'm not really sure how we pulled this off. I mean, this kind of like if I was Palinka, I'd be like, I'll be honest, this started as a joke, y'all. Literally started as a joke, like 3 months ago. I can't believe Luca is sitting here right now. That'd be the first thing
No,
I'd say.
by the way, Nico admitted that in the press conference, and I about lost my mind. He
Yeah,
said, "Yeah, it started out. We Rob and I were we're having coffee, and it started out with hey, would you ever be thinking about trading Luca?" And then they're like, "What?"
yeah. If
Like
I
openly admitting that you got worked and manipulated by another GM
Yeah, that's
who
when you're
up
if you're
until this
Jason
moment
Kidd. you
was
just get up and
widely
leave.
considered to be awful.
Yeah,
Like
or at least injury prone, right?
crazy,
So
crazy.
so that's one. I think we should get to some other trades because that was going to take us a while. We had to unpack that one.
Yeah.
Stay tuned
So
because that'll have implications this summer. It will.
uh yeah, I mean outside of the ones that really have like implications, uh I would say the big one the Bucks traded uh Chris Middleton and some other pieces around for Kyle Kuzma.
Yep.
Just a weird trade that is more I think that is more signaling that the Bucks don't really know what they're doing anymore.
Well, the
That
Bulls. I said I wanted the Bulls to blow it up, and they essentially are. They got Zach
yeah,
LaVine out of
yeah.
there. So,
Um,
yep.
we did talk about Jimmy Butler and his situation. Jimmy Butler got traded to the Warriors, which was is kind of rumored that that was one of his preferred
Yeah.
locations, I think.
He received
Um,
Wiggins, Anderson.
I
Uh,
look, I gotta be honest. Like
mhm.
this feels like a bit of a theft from the Heat on this one because like Andrew Wiggins isn't bad. I
Mm-mm.
mean, and so and I mean for them to get Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell,
And
and
a
a first round or
2025 first round
and a
pick.
first round pick,
Yeah.
and then they get Jimmy Butler, who is essentially a locker room time bomb.
Yeah.
Like it feels like the Warriors gave up a lot to get like Jimmy Butler, who's gonna eventually demand his way out of there
Yeah.
within like a
Warriors,
year
you
anyway.
have traded for a lit stick of dynamite. I hope you know
Yeah,
that. I
exactly.
hope you know that.
Like and like to me, it felt so weird because this move wasn't even like I don't know how it helps you. Like it's
No,
not like Jimmy Butler's gonna get you 40 points a night. Like
it
you
will.
like
I do want
I
to
don't
see the first like video that comes out of Jimmy Butler and Draymond going at it in practice because you know that's going to be just.
I that's gonna be so bad.
I was like,
Like
dude, like just two psychos in one in one team.
yeah, I just don't get it.
It's
Like
wild,
Steph's
man.
getting old, Draymond's getting old. They're both like not what they used to be. Clay's already gone. And so it's like what is your point of
It's
like
almost
trading to
like
win now? Like it doesn't
it,
even
it,
make
it
sense.
it's almost like the vibes of like the Pacers when they added Ron Artest. It's like when they had Ron Artest and they were getting all these guys who ultimately led to the Malice of the Palace. Like you have an aging veteran who in Steph. You now have you have one guy on the team who's prone to getting in trouble, and now you get another guy who's prone to eventually being a bad teammate and wanting out, even if he can drag your team to the finals. So I don't know. I it just it similar vibes to the Pacers of 2005. I don't know
I
when they had Jermaine
yeah, I
O'Neal and
mean
all those guys.
we talked about it too before. It was that like this is a move that the general manager makes just to say that he was active at the deadline. And
Yeah,
it's like what?
just to make a
Like
splash to do something.
like I don't know how many Dubs fans were clamoring to get Jimmy Butler in the building. Like
No, if I'm
especially because like they had to trade Wiggins, who is probably equally as good and younger,
right,
and not I don't know. It just felt like so weird to me that like and unnecessary because it
yeah,
doesn't help you and like you're not going to be immediately a playoff favorite now.
nope. One last one
But
here. Like the last one here on this board here was the Wizards acquire Marcus Smart, send him Bagley and John Davis to the Wizards. So there's that one. But we've talked
yeah.
about the two big ones,
Yeah,
three biggest names on the
the
move.
one I will say that was just kind of funny was uh the after the Luka trade, the Lakers then needed a center because AD left. And so then they fairly overpaid to get Mark Williams, a young center from the Hornets, and who then failed his physical, so then the trade got canceled, of which
Mm.
I think Rob's probably glad he's lucky with that because that was Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish, and a first round pick in 2031 and a pick swap. So that was two first round picks and their first round pick last year as a player and Cam Reddish. So there was a lot of assets to pick up for Mark Williams, who
Yeah,
isn't maybe that good, but he's young and he could be good.
for sure.
So he got bailed out on that one. But the other one I just wanted to touch on was
Yeah,
the Cavs. The Cavs were active.
the
Um,
Cavs,
they traded Karis LeVert and Gorgeous Niang, uh,
Karis
and
LeVert.
a bunch of second round picks and pick swaps, which whatever for DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks. And it's already seeming to pan out.
It's
DeAndre
going
Hunter's
down.
he's looked pretty good for them so far. And yeah, the Cavs seem to be poised to make a bit of a run here. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Are we going to have another cover for another one of Casen's teams that wins the championship this
We'll see.
year?
We'll
I don't
see.
know, but I think the Cavs have a pretty good shot, and we'll be here to talk about it. Let's switch to pop culture and finish this thing out the way we need to. Do we want to get into the? Let's talk about Fantastic Four trailer, and let's just kind of speak on it because it also came out while we were away, and then we will
Yeah.
finish things up with the latest Marvel news. That's news as of like the last couple of days. So, Fantastic Four trailer. It's been a while since I've seen it. Now, it's my thoughts at the time
Yeah.
were that they really it looks like a period piece, and I mean that in a
Hmm.
positive way. It really does. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But the teaser, it was a really good teaser as well. Didn't really show us much, but it really looks like the Fantastic Four in their elements, like comic correct things. The casting looks pretty good. I think out of even that little teaser, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm was probably showcased for the best, and how like she really does feel like a mother, kind of holding the family together.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean that's those were my initial thoughts. I also thought the Thing looked great. Ben Grimm thought he looked fantastic. Pun intended. So yeah, those were my initial thoughts on the trailer. I haven't really changed too much. I've gone back and watched it a few times. Kazen, you have anything to say?
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. I think um it looks promising. I thankfully they didn't really reveal too much because I
No,
couldn't really tell what exactly storyline was going to be part of it because they had a lot of they seemed to indicate that there was a portion of the movie that would be after the whole space incident, but then there are clips of it, so I don't know if it's going to be like set in quote like their present showing like flashbacks to the incident I don't
that's what
know.
I assume it's going to be.
I don't know how they're going to weave in the story because it seems like they will show whatever the space incident is, but that I don't know if that's going to be like the present storyline. I'm not sure on that, but um,
It's also clear
yeah.
to
I do,
me.
do you
Go ahead.
do you think we're gonna get Tony Stark? I believe it seems like we should be if he's playing.
And to clarify, this would be Victor Von Doom as you mean that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Victor Von Doom as a variant of it. Listen, he wasn't in the teaser, and he wouldn't be in the teaser. I mean, if he's gonna be
yeah,
in there at all, I wouldn't even put him in the marketing material because I
yeah.
don't think
Right.
that's. But I keep thinking to myself, surely the main villain. I'm like, okay, so the main villain might just be Galactus to start this out. There also was no indications of a Silver Surfer who is being played by a female. I believe they have confirmed, although the Silver Surfer is kind of an androgynous person anyway. Um, I honestly do think we will. I do think we will see Victor Von Doom, Robert Downey Jr. in this. I don't think he's gonna be that yet. I think that's gonna maybe like we'll see a lead into his origin because I I am convinced that this whatever they're going to show us with Fantastic Four is going to be a situation where it's like retro 60s obviously, but it's going to be in a universe in which the Fantastic Four are the only superheroes.
Hmm.
Hence, hence why I loved all of the old looking marketing material and all the illustrated posters of little kids wearing like their gear and stuff. And it looked like the 60s, like kids are driving around like the Fantastic car thing. Because I'm thinking to myself, yeah, if these guys existed on their own, they would essentially be the four team Avengers of their world, right? And they're somehow, some way going to get spat out in our dimension. My biggest question about this movie is I assume the whole thing takes place in their universe and it'll be their story. And then we won't really see any of that interaction until after the end, somehow when they're sent through.
Hmm.
Maybe they do something with time with like generate universe hopping in order to quote unquote save the day, you know,
Hmm.
because one of the biggest things is Reed Richards is like top three smartest people in the MCU. And so it's like Tony Stark, him, Hank Pym, like all of them, those guys at the top, like those smartest, at least the smartest men. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they do that. And I keep thinking to myself, am I going to find it more interesting their story with the family dynamic, or am I going to find it more interesting once these people are put into the present day MCU? It's hard for me to really determine that. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the biggest question I have for the movie. It looks cool though. I think it feels like nothing Marvel's really done before, and it's the first time I've felt that way
Hmm.
about a Marvel project in a while. You know,
Yeah, it definitely hopefully that they'll be able to stick the landing on this one, because they need it.
oh, if you say anything about you and I, we're the kings of transition. I'll tell you what. Yeah, our last thing we're going to talk about here today is just this news that, and I knew it was coming because the embargo was going to lift, and Disney doesn't really like if they hold their embargoes, that's bad. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If you hold them to a certain point, but I knew the embargoes were going to lift on like Tuesday, Wednesday ish of this week on Captain America: Brave New World, the movie that literally comes out like today, tonight, the night
Yeah.
we're filming. Like there are people that are gonna um, hear this tomorrow, Casen, that will have
I mean,
already seen it.
there's screenings happening now.
There's
Yeah.
screenings happening right now as we're recording this. So I mean, it is coming out. The Rotten Tomatoes and the original embargo lifted the reviews and are saying it's like it's meh. Are saying it's like 54. I think it's like actually down to 51% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not right in front of me, so don't hold me to that. But that like it was weird because I remember seeing when the embargoes were going to lift, and I had this feeling of I could feel it coming. Is it weird to say? Is it weird to say that I had like an ominous
Well,
feeling about this?
I think that, yeah, I mean, because here's the thing. So this movie was primarily developed under the old plan. So like we've talked a lot about
Right.
the changes they made last year to really fix some of the issues. And so I from a lot of the reviews I've seen and heard from people, there are problems with this movie that are, that are there,
Stemming from that.
and it's clear that they tried to fix as much as they could in
Mm.
post and since that, and so it's probably better than it was a year ago.
Oh wow.
Uh,
Oof.
but and so they did what they could to fix what they had to get it to probably like a bit better than Black Widow.
Mm.
So it's like it's not, Winter Soldier level, but it's better than what we've had, which is not really saying much, but it is what it is. But I think from what I saw people say is that it's clear that what they fixed was good, and that if they had that approach the whole movie, it would have been a good movie.
Mm. Okay. Yeah,
From what I've seen so far.
people who have said it's great have praised performances, stuff that you could expect. Like Harrison Ford steals every scene he's in. I'm like, I don't think
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like he's like a scene stealer. It's just he's the man. I mean,
Yeah.
Harrison
Yeah.
Ford's such an amazing actor, one of the greatest of all time. So like, yeah, I expect him to be great. Um, but it also sounds like that as much as it is a Captain America story, it's also like a Thunderbolt Ross story. Which, given that the next movie is the Thunderbolts, I am not surprised that that's going to have something because I think it is worth to also bring up that a new trailer for the Thunderbolts has come out because it debuted with the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
and I don't say this lightly. That new trailer got me way more excited for the Thunderbolts than their initial trailer did.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're like the second trailer, if you haven't seen it, go take a look where there's those heartfelt moments between Yelena and they're talking about like downtroddenness, where also it looks like they're fighting some Superman level threat. I just also want to throw out there. I don't know who it's against. I don't know who the villain is, but it definitely has the Suicide Squad vibes to it. If that they're taking on something like that, Marvel's Suicide Squad. That trailer was fantastic. I really I loved it. It really got me more excited for the Thunderbolts. Really believable, the downtrodden characters of the MCU. I say all that to basically say that I still, I'm holding out hope that, like, I think some people see low scores in Marvel films and they immediately think, oh, bad movie. What's a bad MCU movie, really? In my opinion, there's like a few that are terrible, but every time I see low scores and like the Eternals got 47%, I always ask the question, you're telling me that this movie's worse than Thor the Dark World? Like, I that's like my lowest bar in the MCU. I'm like, I'm sorry, the MCU's. I'm not trying to sound like a fanboy here. The MCU's like middle of the road films are usually much better than like bad. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I've seen very mixed reviews on this, but it sucks to see this at the beginning of a year where, let's face it, Marvel needs some dubs. They need some
Hmm.
wins. They need some hits. Like,
Yeah.
and this ain't a strong start. Sounds like most people could take or leave this one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I do have a feeling that it's going to be relatively important,
I agree.
at least moving forward with the because it sounds like it's going to go into the Thunderbolts. Um, and so it is seemingly integral into that storyline,
Yeah.
I will say. So
Well, I
we
will.
we'll see how that goes.
Yes. Hopefully, if Casen and I can make it happen, our next show will be a review of it. If not, we will bring you a review of
Yeah.
Captain
We'll try to
America.
get that next week.
We're kind of we're kind of, now that football season's over, we're kind of moving into our other specialty that we do on this show,
Yeah.
where we really dive into movies, and it's just nice to be able to have some to review, and we'll be here, and it will get our ratings, our Marvel rating, which,
Mhm.
so that's the show. Any final thoughts, Kason, out there on anything that didn't get said? And you can't say
I
go Chiefs this time. That's
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
That's dead.
Um yeah, I mean, look, I uh I don't think we talked about it.
Sure.
Um Miles Garrett. Oof.
Yeah, that's a
We'll
good last bit to say. Go
pre
ahead.
pre prefer not to talk about that, but oof is what I'll leave that at.
Yep. Miles Garrett has requested a trade from the Browns. There's no news beyond that, correct?
Yeah, I mean the news is Miles Garrett wants out. The Browns don't want to trade him, and
And
yeah, I don't.
and
I mean,
so begins the standoff that will dominate the Browns offseason. Well, I guess while we're throwing out stuff about our team, there's a rumor going around Pittsburgh that the Steelers are trying to trade for Trevor Lawrence, which doesn't.
yeah, I think I saw that. I saw they denied that. I don't know. Whatever.
I
Aaron Rodgers is available.
I was going to say that in no way that in no way really all that excites me. The whole Trevor Lawrence thing, the Aaron Rodgers thing. Please quash that. Please, Steelers, do not do that. Please, whatever you do, don't do that. That's where I leave it. That's where I'll leave the show this week. Yeah, this is Kellen.
Yeah, this is Casen.
And as always, we'll see you at the next stop.